everybody, and welcome back to Writing the Rapids, the show where I, Joe Bielecki, talk to writers about writing. Very often they've been recommended to me by writers who have previously been on the show, or it's a Rejoinder episode, and I talked to someone who's already been on, and that's what this is. We're once again talking to Jenkin Benson. He's a graduate student, musician, and poet. New Mundo Press published his debut full-length Are We Rocking With This in August of 2025. Cut Press published his debut solo chapbook, Sixth Man Award, in September 2024, and more information can be found in his link tree, which will be in the show notes. Before we get into my conversation with Jenkin, let's remind you that patreon.com/noisemakerjoe is the place where you can go and choose to give me $2 a month to get these episodes a little bit earlier than everybody else and give me a nice little ego boost. You can also buy my book. It's called Tired. It's on Amazon. You can give me a one-time donation over at paypal.me/noisemakerjoe, or you can do the free option, unless social currency is of issue for you, and tell 2 friends about this show. Now, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Jenkin. I want to start with the title of this chap, Anxiolytics for Phytoplankton.
Yes.
A common theme I am coming to realize with your writing for me is that I just need a dictionary and Wikipedia with me. Because, like, I don't know, man. Well, I mean, you deal with language in an academic way that I think has made you more acquainted with the way words are constructed than I think your average bear. And I really I love that. Like, I love how the reading experience of going through your work for me has become one of, like, let's vibe with it, and then let's sit down and be like, is this a word I don't know? Is this a prefix I'm familiar with and a suffix I'm not familiar with smushed together to make something new? Is this something from a different language? And so, yeah, let's start with the title. Obviously, anxiety medication for little tiny guys. I think that's saying it in such a big way is fun. I like that.
Yeah, I guess to, like, sort of, I was just kind of like, it's kind of, the title really started as kind of like a joke with myself. I guess phytoplankton are plankton that do photosynthesis, and they're like sort of they're like a cornerstone species because they're like really important to ocean sort of biomes and ecosystems. And it's kind of like a honeybee thing, if like honeybees die out, then major pollinators gone, and then sort of ecosystems collapse. It's like the same thing with the phytoplankton, but they're like way more important because, like, basically the, like, oceans are sort of like the foundation for all sort of terrestrial ecosystems too. Mm-hmm. And they're like hurting right now because, like, with ocean acidification and temperature rises, like, scientists don't really know if they will, like, sort of adapt to that and will, like, survive that. And that's bad. Bad. That's bad for the world. And I don't know. I was just thinking, like, and so the joke basically is like, man, it's like, why am I taking anxiety pills? It's like, we need to give it to the phytoplankton, just because they're, like, how much of a cornerstone type of organism they are. So that's, like, basically the joke. But the sort of the subtext of the joke is, like, we're living in sort of a very ecologically and politically, what's the best way? What's the
We're
best
a little
word
precarious.
Yeah, precarious. That's the word. So the project is really like trying to, yeah, I mean, like express that sort of psychological, like disfigurement, psychological, I mean, really just sort of anxiety in a really, really sort of intense way. Um, like how does one come to a language that can represent this sort of this very interior discontent, and it's an interior discontent sort of, imposed upon by very exterior discontents. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of a jokey title. I love to write jokey stuff that, also has some meat to it. So
Hmm.
that's like kind of the gist of it. It's, it's anxiolytics for phytoplankton. Um it's really all about sort of how do we express sort of an interior language that is actually like grappling with much larger sort of planetary phenomenon. So yeah, that's there's that push and pull between like sort of like the personal and sort of the world historical, eco historical massiveness of like the time that we're living in.
Yeah, which is rough.
Yeah, yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah, um the way that I do this show is that oftentimes someone will be recommended to me, as you were, reach out to them, and I'll get them on the show, have a conversation, and then for whatever reason the algorithm knows, or we've tagged each other in enough posts that like I get their stories on Instagram a lot. And so like I get this um added context later, where for you it's like, oh, okay, dude is very up to date on climate news, and cares deeply about it. And like, I don't think we talked about that like at all in the episode, and if we did, it was very scant. um and that's interesting to me, because then I get to come into the new work for the Rejoinder with like, all right, cool, like now I know that there's this like whole other facet that I just like didn't get to, because how do you know an entire person within an hour of discussion?
Mhm.
um and yeah, the so I had that in my brain, along with your strong opinions about poetry, and like,
That
so,
strong is the nicest way to the nicest way to put it. Um, yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, I make uh no secret that my confidence level with regard to discussing poetry and having like capital O opinions about it is very low. Like, I'm not gonna for years still sit and be like, yeah, that poem's bad. Aside from like maybe reading something in a lit mag and just and having it like not even connect with me like at all. Like, that's kind of like the worst thing I can say about a poem is like, oh, did I read that? Yeah, I guess I did. Um but like, again, uh you know you have read more poetry than me, you have written more poetry than me, and you have more opinions than me about it, which is like, man, like, that's good, right? Like, uh not everybody should be just vibing out like me. I saw on Blue Sky the other day, some horror writers I know talking about like, oh yeah, we need people like publicly beefing again. We need, someone needs to like say this book that this person wrote is trash. And that's the sentiment I have seen from other people too over the years, is like, the book review is essentially useless, and everybody's like too afraid to say so and so's thing is bad or whatever. And like, even there's that Polish writer lady, Turns out she's using AI, and everyone's like, "Oh man, that's such a shame because I love her writing so much." And I'm over here being like, "Dude, plow your bones over the dead or whatever." That I didn't like that book really at all, but like way too afraid to say it. And by the time anyone hears this, that'll be so old news, nobody will care that I said that I didn't care for that book too much. But yeah, so I was like kind of looking for that too as I was reading. And there's a line early on, you say like the wackest poets, like whack poets taunting witches to say, is a line that ends, "What can't be cured must be endeared." And yeah, so I don't know if you want to kind of talk about that.
Okay, yeah. There's certainly a lot of snarkiness in it, and I will say that like I'm pretty snarky on Instagram. I kind of treat my Instagram, especially my stories, as sort of a space to expurgate all my sort of negative or prickly emotions regarding that. But I will say like a lot of this project is also sort of like, I mean, it's a project grappling with like, sort of frustrations with articulating oneself and like sort of, I mean, really like trying to create something, trying to create this textual art. And I think in some ways, like the poems kind of lash out a bit at sort of, a lot of times it's like sort of cliches of contemporary poetry, the sort of like the as if to say, like, and I mean, I'll just like put my cards on the table when I see as if to say, or like, which mean when somebody, it's just like, you're not supposed to put that in the poem. You're supposed to describe it and do. I just, it's one of those sort of like lyric poetry cliches that just like makes me, I'm not a fan of it at all.
Sure.
I think it's like, I don't know. It'd be like to me. It's like if you were like painting something and then you put a little caption like, "Yeah, here I painted a tree," and then there's like, "Here's a tree." It's just like I've no time for it.
It's like it's like that that political cartoonist guy that overdoes it.
Yeah. No, it's there. There are moments. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that in the text too, of just sort of like, kind of poking fun at the contemporary poetry world. I'm not even, I mean, I guess like really just sort of like poetry of the sort of post World War II period to now. So there's a lot of that in there. But yeah, I mean, like it's hard. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people too, they come to poetry, in a very like, there's a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a certain coziness or like, a very romantic outpouring of emotions. And that's fine, and I've read, there's a lot of stuff that I think that, there's a place for that. And there's a certain community aspect of that I think is important too. So I'm not denigrating that like as a whole, but also at the same time, like this project specifically, it's a project that's, it's dealing with some shit, and it's dealing with my own like shit, my own sort of like struggles with mental illness. So it's like, it's gonna get prickly and it's gonna get a little thorny. And I for this particular project, I tried not to be like, I tried to make the acerbity like, be a little quirked up and be a little funny. So it's just not so just like so dourly mopey. But I don't, when it comes to this art form that I love and that I've committed myself to, I'm not gonna pull any, I won't even call them punches. I'm not gonna pull any sort of like I don't know, forehead flicks, I guess. Yeah, but there's definitely some friction, absolutely.
Yeah, the last poem is titled "I'm Sorry I Love You But I Really Hate Your Moon Poems." And you got little moons acting as like the line break slashes. Um, and that's fun. That's fun. And I think, like, you know, poking fun and whatever. There's a sort of I don't want to say broiness to your writing, because the context in 2026 is like incredibly negative. But there's a sort of, I don't know, masculine youthfulness to some of the ways that you write things, where it does feel like a buddy is talking to me, and sort of the one of the things I find so compelling about your writing, and that I'm generally finding difficult to talk about, is that is just an ingredient in the casserole, where like some poets would be like, I'm gonna write this like a college dude would talk, and that's kind of like how their poetry is. Or I'm gonna do the, you know, words all over the page, and that's how their writing is. Or I'm gonna, like, you know, stick two words together to make another word, and that's like a thing. And you are like adding lots of those elements and more. There was a moment where I was like, what if I go through and read this chap again and say to myself, I'm gonna write down all the different types of neologisms? And like, I just decided like I didn't have the energy for that sort of like, and I don't know exactly what that would have accomplished, because it strikes me that like that's not what you're necessarily doing. But all of that is, I guess, like what makes your writing like overwhelming for me, overwhelming to talk about, because it's hard to be like, wow, you're doing a lot. Wow.
I'll say, in regards to sort of like, I mean, I think I have a sort of you know, a broy type of personal diction. Broy in the sense of like, I mean, honestly, I feel like you know, like my mom had 12 siblings, and seven of them were brothers, and kind of like very stonery 70s type of dudes.
Yeah.
And I think that, and even my mom kind of has that same sort of kind of like vernacular. And I think that definitely, I think that's a sort of a foundation. And then, you know, sort of with like internet speak and sort of like
Mm-hmm.
2010s culture, and just kind of like growing up in the Midwest. So I think I mean, when I come to writing, um, I mean, I guess I'm really influenced. I'm really influenced by the people I'm like studying right now.
Right.
I wrote a dissertation chapter on James Joyce and David Jones, and I mean, like their whole, you know, to admittedly flatten their work, but you know, they're trying to craft a sort of, you know, highfalutin, you know, hot art, but also at the same time like really engage in the colloquial and engage in sort of like so, you know, the merging of like common speak with a more, you know, elevated register. That's definitely, I think that's definitely like, that has been imparted to me, you know, through the studies and just through engaging with modernism, like as a whole. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think like sort of, you know, me and my just sort of just how I talk is like absolutely there. I'm not like, I wouldn't shy away from sort of a sort of skeleton, like a colloquial, personal, lyrical skeleton. I think for me the challenge was like, all right, you know, there's things I want to say, and I can say them as myself in my, you know, own diction, and then I could, you know, I could write poems like that, you know, very prosaic, sort of in jammed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what have you. But I want to do something different. Um, and the neologistic sort of impulse really comes from that. Like, I mean, because a lot of the poems, like I'll even, all I think like sort of the underlying gist of some of these poems are not really that complex. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like Diet Coke enema, but for my mouth. That's just really that's a poem about how often I will take pills with Diet Coke at like 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like that's really what that poem's about. Of course, other thing, people can close read whatever they want and interpret it and whatever. But that was like sort of the impetus of that poem. So it's like taking something that's like honestly really kind of simple or really sort of like I don't know, imagistic and sort of rendering that I don't know, I really try to render it in a way that like nobody has done before or nobody has thought of to do before. And yeah, if it really for with Are We Rocking With This and with these projects, like the sort of this experimental linguistic um mishmashing, recrafting, sort of just complete molding, kind of like a lexical fuckery. That's yeah, I mean that's how I'm doing it. I think that for me it's like this is how we take sort of these observations and try to make them more artful and make them more yeah, make them more sort of compelling as a like a piece of textual art. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to do.
So when you're crafting these poems, are they coming out I don't know, forgive me, impressionistic like this, or are you kind of
Mm.
smudging a more plain spoken initial draft?
Oh, kind of, sorta. It's like I'll generally like with this project, I'll have an idea. I'll have a sort of observation, and maybe a couple lines will kind of be like sort of the prototypical like this is kind of like what this poem is about. Um, maybe there'll be sort of like plain speak. Maybe there'll be a little bit sort of like poetically so intervened upon in some capacity. Um, a lot of the times I'm literally I like a Facebook message myself like all the time. Like sort of a phrase will come into my head. Sometimes I use the notes app, but honestly, it's mostly Facebook messaging.
That's
I probably have
beautiful. I love
like
that.
five. Yeah, yeah. I probably have like 5 years. I used to actually have like a WhatsApp like text thing. It wasn't WhatsApp. I think it was text now, and I would just like sort of text myself
Hmm.
basically. I don't know why I did that. I just for some reason it appealed to me.
Yeah,
And
that
then
aesthetically is gorgeous. I love that idea.
and then kind of like from there, it becomes sort of a it really just becomes like a I don't know. It's like a smorgasbord, a buffet of like, all right, I have these sentences I want to convey. Let's play with them. And I mean, for if for anybody that wants to like read my stuff, like the sort of at least sort of like the stuff I've been doing since like 2023, it's like kind of the skeleton key really is just like if you have access to the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, that will absolutely help. But if you don't have access to that, because like you'd have to go through a library or something probably, or if you have a physical copy for the people that I
For the real
certainly don't.
ones.
But
Yeah.
you got Wiktionary also, or
Hmm.
Wiktionary is also really helpful. Like you can like dissect the words and sort of like
Hmm.
see what I'm doing because a lot of the times it's just like I'm smashing words together. I'm playing with the prefixes and suffixes. I'm a lot of the times I'll look up the etymological like origin and sort of play with sort of like that etymological definition. Um, and it really becomes like a sort of again, and I'll often it's like, all right, okay, I have this stanza or I have this line, and I really want a particular sound, but there's no word that uses that sound.
Mm.
So I'll try maybe it's just like one syllable from another word that has that sound that is related that goes there. It's really just like making the language, work for what I want the poem to do, and kind of like giving myself, free reign to like, other people will be like, well, like people don't like know what this word is. So should you use it? And like, I don't know, for me, I'm just gonna like go for it. I'm just gonna go for it because like, why not? It's not like, I'm not. This isn't like a John Grisham novel. There's no structure I have to like adhere to. I can just like do it. Um, and once I like kind of realized you could just kind of like do that,
Mm-hmm.
that really did open up a whole world for me as far as like creating this type of poetry goes. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it absolutely like the origin points are like, I think are much more to like sort of conventionally lyrical, um, or even like conventionally prosy. And it's like once I take that core idea, that's where I sort of like, all right, let's like chop and splice, chop and splice. Um, and as I say chop and splice too, that might be like, I produce like sort of like electronic music too, and like sort of hip hoppy stuff and like beats and all that. And that impulse, maybe that does come from like literally sort of like sampling and sort of like chopping music up. That, as I'm kind of having that epiphany like right now as we talk, like that might be like where that actually comes from. Um,
Yeah.
just sort of this idea of like, creating something completely new out of the bits and pieces of other, pieces of art or other sort of like lexical items or units or prefixes or what have you. Um, yeah, it's a lot of splicing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of splicing.
Yeah, I like that idea of sampling your own writing like that. Um, and that's not like a completely alien concept to the show. Like, there are definitely people who have come on and been like, yeah, I've got a notebook full of lines, and then I sit down and I
Mm,
arrange.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and I like the idea that you're going through and you're like, oh, this line doesn't have the consonants that I want. I'm a go on to Wiktionary and find a new suffix. Just like
Yeah.
that. The I've I'm sure spoken of like my writing of poetry kind of feeling like jazz, and being like, the idea is the fixed part of the song, and then the poem itself is the the 16 bars of improv solo I get to play over the idea, and then I kind of like don't do very much to it.
Mm,
And I'm realizing now, I've talked on the past couple episodes about like completed first or second drafts that have not been touched in years. I'm looking at my new hard drive on my computer that is just sitting on a stack of books because I haven't screwed it into the actual case of the PC itself. That like, I don't finish projects very easily, and so like there is a thing for me where it's like, dog, if you don't get it all out now, it ain't happening.
mm.
With regard to poetry, um, and so I like respect and am envious of anybody who like enjoys editing and or doing what you're doing, which is like, um, it's not even necessarily just like, I've read people talking about like, oh, I'll spend hours agonizing over the word choice in a sentence, and internally being like, I believe you, but I don't know what that looks like or feels like. Um, but like, I like the idea that you're potentially going down like Wikipedia rabbit holes or similar to kind of get at something. Um,
Yeah, I feel like when people like say that, like a lot of the times it's like they get so hung up. it's like, what's the right word? What's the right word? And they're sort of like, thinking in terms of like what are like poetry sounding words?
Mm.
Like, you know, uh, like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I rip on moon poems a lot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how can I describe this moon? Like, what's the best way to do it? And it's just like, at some point, I think, I can't say always do this, but like at some point, just like make up the word. It's like, maybe not every single time, but like if you get stuck, it's like, well, one, you can go backwards in time a little bit, like find if there's an archaic or an unused word. Um, this is just me getting on my soapbox on craft right now, but it's like you can pick a word that people like don't use anymore, and I think there's a ton of value in like sort of rejuvenating that, or just like you know do your own word. It's like I think that a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't really want, I want my work to sort of have this immediate sort of emotional connection with the reader. I don't want them to like basically have to look anything up. Um, and I don't know. I guess I'm like maybe it's just because I'm like doing research, so I'm always looking stuff up. But it's like for me, it's like, hey, go look it up. I don't know. I think of that Faulkner quote where it was like, some people he was getting like interviewed and the interviewer was like, some people, you know, um are having a hard time reading it and they have to read it twice, to fully get it, and they still don't even get it. It's like, what do you say about that? And he was basically like, all right, well, read it a third time, basically. I feel like I kind of do adhere to like, you know, it's a you're not gonna you're not going to totally grasp something immediately. So sometimes you got to reread it, read into other things, play around with it. And that goes the same for like readers of the work and the person writing the work too.